halfway through it. And so what I want to take you through now is the other half of that business model and look at what you're going to do. So what we've got in plan is build a website in Weebly. Hopefully some of you will really enjoy that. Then we're going to talk about proof of concept on Thursday. You know, how do you prove a concept? And we've talked about this a few times, that it's one of the most powerful things you can do in this game is to prove your concept. But how do you do that? How do you present to a financier, to a bank, to an investor, to an angel investor? How do you prove your concept is going to be viable or have a reasonable chance of success? How do you do that? So we're going to be talking about that early. And then I want to talk about how I evaluate a business model. Yeah, remember I said that we sit down and we go through your business model and we evaluate it. I'm going to show you in each of those parts that we're talking about what I'm looking for as an experienced entrepreneur, the things that I would like to hear you talk about when you're talking about partnerships, the thing I'd like you to talk about when I hear you talking about market segments. These are the things that I think are the things that you should be thinking about building into your business model. So we're going to go through that, and then that sets us up nicely for starting to have some nights that I'll create a calendar for, probably Mondays and Wednesday nights, probably from 3:30 in the afternoon, and 1.5 hour slots over the next 6 weeks. And that those of you that want to connect with me and come and talk to me individually about your business idea, that's probably sets it up nicely, because at least you'll come in with a completed business model. And when I'm asking you questions about things you're going to do, you'll have a pretty good idea of what I'm wanting to hear, what I wanted to talk about. So that's the goal. So after this week, which is 4, so we'll have still 8 weeks to get around the whole class if you need to. It's a really good time. I enjoy it because I just get a lot more in-depth understanding of what you're trying to do. There's nothing bad about it. I don't sit there and, get in, I'm not one of that chef guy who, gets into people. Yeah, no, it's none of that sort of stuff. It's quite often look, that's really good. Have you thought about maybe going with this, or maybe changing it to this, or pivoting this, or maybe test it here, maybe, quite often I can give some advice, not advice, I'm not allowed to do that. Maybe I can explain to you what I think an experienced entrepreneur would do given the plan that you've got. So let's jump in. So this is just the rest of the business model. So one of those boxes talks about revenue streams. What revenue streams are you going to have? And it sounds a bit like, some nature walk, doesn't it? You're going to get some revenue streams. But basically the revenue streams is, how is cash going to come into your business? How are you going to make that happen? There's quite a few ways that can happen, and sometimes you set up multiple revenue streams. You don't just rely on one, and they can be subscription service. Maybe you've got something that people subscribe to. I guess gyms and that sort of thing work on that. Sometimes you might be selling services for a fee, some sort of consultancy services you might be offering, or alteration services, or whatever. Goods, obviously, some of you are going to make goods and sell them, or you might build a website and put advertising like we've done, put advertising on a website and create a revenue stream that way. So there's quite a few, and I haven't told you, but the guy that sort of came up with this business model idea, he did write a nice article about it, and I haven't put that up, but I will put that up tonight. Maybe I'll even get it up tonight while you guys are working on your Weebly. And when you download that, all of these boxes that you've got to fill in, he goes into great detail and great depth about how to complete them. So that should help you complete that assessment. So down there it says, what are customers really willing to pay for? How are you generating transactional or reoccurring? Are you making sort of one-off sales, or have you got a plan to actually win people over in a recurring way? So they're all the decisions you've got to make about how you're going to make money. Sometimes you can, Andrew, as we were talking the other day, sometimes it's not always just a one-up payment. Sometimes you can construct your business so that it creates a regular payment over time, and it's not a bad way of doing it. I think those TV people do that, don't they? It's only $29 deposit and then an easy $10 a month, And it's not a bad way of breaking down a price that's actually $280. It actually breaks down to what, 29 bucks? Well, and only $10 a month. Whereas if you said $280, maybe people would balk and say, maybe not, you know. So revenue streams, you've got to decide that. And like I say, this book, when you look at it, will be very good. These are, we talked about this last week, these are all the different types of revenue streams you can get, different ways that which you can make money, different models that you can use to make money. And they're all there. We covered it last week, so worth looking at there. Key resources are important. What key resources are you bringing to the business? Or what key resources, more importantly, does your business need? For you to do this business model, what resources do you need? If you're thinking of having a coffee shop, well, where are you going to get the property, the lease from? Where are you going to get all the equipment from? The two key things, obviously, when resources is your, I've got their personnel, so people, and part of that people resource is obviously you. What unique things you've got to bring to the business to make it work, and what assets do you bring? And when we're talking about key resources, so they're different for each business model. Depending on your business model, they'll have different requirements, because your key resources help you create and offer value. The resources that you bring help you reach markets, maintain relationships, and earn revenues. The key things we're looking for when we're talking about evaluation, when you're talking about your resources that you've got, these are the things I'm looking at. How unique is it? This resource you've got, how unique is it? How unfair is it? There's people here whose parents actually own a business. Yeah, so that's pretty unfair that you're already in the business. Your family already owns a stake in that business. That makes it a bit unfair for someone like me trying to break into that business. Unfair is, quite often people, relationships you already have. Sometimes unfairness is insider knowledge that you have about an industry that other people just don't know. Very few people know this particular thing about the industry, and you know it. So that's almost an unfair advantage, and that's what I'm looking for, because this business is hard, and so I want to know that you guys have got an unfair advantage, a winning start, if you like. And also you're looking at your resources that are hard or impossible to replicate, because very soon you're going to be out in the public doing what you do. People are going to come along and look at what you're doing, and if you're successful, they're going to try and re-engineer it. They're going to pull it apart, try and find its components, and then copy it, aren't they? What you want is when they pull it apart, they go, actually, we can't copy it. Or if we were to copy it, it would cost us a fortune. That's what you want to get to. So when I'm looking at your resources, or when you're looking at them yourself, you're looking for that sort of stuff. You're not just saying, oh, but I've got money in the bank. Money in the bank is a pretty low-level resource. It doesn't sound right, does it? But money in the bank is not a sustainable resource. That'll get you started. What makes a sustainable resource is that money gets invested and gives you a return, and a perpetual return. Perpetual returns only come from your ability to be unique in the market and carve out a niche that only you really can supply. So we're looking for that in the key resources. There's different types of resources. Don't just think of resources, what's that, money and my car. No, there's lots of resources, and this is what you've got to really dig down into. Physical, okay, the location, the vehicles, building equipment. So maybe you've even got that. Maybe you've got the only imported beauty product that was made in Germany, and you've imported, you're the only one in Queensland with it. So maybe there is a chance that you have a unique bit of equipment that other people don't have. But there's also intellectual, like patents, trademarks, brands. I'm particularly excited about lists. When people start businesses and they say, and I have the list of customers, I get very excited, because, that's an amazing resource to bring in a startup business, is the list of customers that actually buy in that business. Boy, that's more valuable. I'd take that over cash in the bank, because that's the sort of stuff that's going to get me my repeating and referring income stream. So customer lists, even supply lists. When I open a business, I usually know the right suppliers to get for everything. When I'm talking cafes, because that's what I've done. And yet other people will scrounge around, they won't know where to go, and I have that insider knowledge. Any particular software, maybe some apps. Human skills, expertise, knowledge, attitudes, reputation. The advisors you got, some of you will have really good advisors. You've got really good insider people. You know Peter Basketball at Southbank, maybe some of you, and that'll be a big help. No, everyone's asleep. Obviously financial is a resource, both internal and external. Financial, internal meaning the money you're able to raise in your own backyard, and external, the money that you have access to through probably your credit cards. And maybe beyond that, if you can go beyond credit cards and get finance in terms of investors. And we'll talk about that later in the course, the different investments that you can get, angel investors, venture capitalists, crowdsourcing, various ones like that. Reputation not to be put down either, you know. If you guys already have a reputation in the market, and hopefully when I say that again, a good reputation in the market, don't have one where the guy who is actually mentioned in Hansard as being a scoundrel. Don't have that sort of reputation. Maybe your product has a good reputation. Maybe your person or the organisation that you represent has a good reputation. A lot of this is about that personal branding, building it early. Get in early, build a brand so that when people Google you, you look impressive. Yeah. How's our Scotch man going? Is he getting it done? Yeah. It looks good. What a wonderful product to be selling, isn't it? You know, it's got such subjective margins. And then organisationally, you know, maybe you have maybe some of you who come from very corporate backgrounds, maybe, or you come from a lot of training in organisational structure and systems, and you have really good time management systems, or you have really good organisational skills, or whatever it is. You know, they're also resources. So when you're talking about the resources your business needs and you're bringing, don't just limit yourself to the money and the equipment. Think about all of these things and go looking hard for which of these resources are unique, hard to copy, and give you an unfair advantage. Because maybe they're the resources you should pull into the business to make your business model unique. And maybe that's the part that you really feature. Or that might help determine the market you're going to. Key activities. So what's the key thing you're going to be doing? What activity you're going to be carrying on? What's the critical thing you need to do in order to be to maintain that business? So you're thinking about the activities and thinking, well, in understanding those activities, am I able to deliver those activities? Are they activities that I can manage and do? So there's different activities. The consultants do problem solving. Dell did supply chain management. Microsoft do software development. Every business model has its key activity. You need to identify what that key activity is, and again, be thinking to yourself, does it fit with all the resources and the people and the target market? You know, this, at the end of the day, this 9 thing has to be cohesive. When you write this model and I scan it for its 9 components, it actually has to make sense. You can't have a thing that says, yeah, we're going to go for a low-cost model, we're going to do a low-priced product, and we're going to provide one-on-one customer service. And that doesn't happen. If you're giving customized service, you're giving expensive. You have to charge expensive rates. You can't do discount customized service. Hey, you can't build stuff cheap. Yeah. If they want customized stuff, the price goes up. And for me, I think it's about 4 times. You asked me if I could build something and then sell it to you, or you want a customized thing, the price is about 4 times. I mean, I had this problem with, not this problem, but my wife got caught up in the wedding dress because she's a bit of a sewer, yeah? And they said, we went to she said, I've taken it to someone to get it fixed. A few of the hem taken up, and they wanted $600 or something. And that's because it's a customized approach. And my wife said, oh, look, don't worry, I'll do it. And then my wife said, I should have charged $600 because custom is really hard. You know, you've got to be really careful with custom because it can come back to bite you in terms of the sheer amount of cost that you need and the service you've got to provide to do custom. Whereas if she could just do that stuff without any outside involvement, she would be able to produce 4 times as much. And I think it's about a 1 to 4, you know. So if you're going to do something custom, if you're going to sell desks that you make in your thing and then put out the front and sell, and then you're going to make desks for people, the price differential is about 4 times. So don't go thinking, oh, it's about 25% more. I think it's about 4 times more to do custom. Anyway, that's just my rule of thumb. So when you present something that's a custom product, I'm looking for very high margins, or at least high prices. Okay, other key activities, you might be into production, which might, you know, mostly manufacturing and selling things. You might be into problem solving, which a lot of consulting firms do. You might be into maintaining a platform if you're in a matchmaking arrangement, if you're providing a platform for 2 parties to come together and engage. Obviously, maintaining that platform becomes the most important thing. eBay wakes up every morning and thinks we just have to maintain this platform. They're not having to worry about manufacturing things or problem solving in the sense of for customers. They're just trying to maintain the operation of the platform. So that's their business model is built, and that's their key activity. So you need to understand what your key activity is. Key partners. Yeah, I think this one's pretty important. And that's why you guys need to be working on your partners now. You know, probably even people that don't realize they're going to be your partners, but you're working on them now. You're talking to them in a way that the back of your mind, you're going somewhere down the track, we're going to do business together. Maybe not as fully fledged partners, but maybe as in a collaborative way. We're going to do things together. We're going to share knowledge, or we're going to share customers, or we're going to do things together. And you've got to be seeking them out now. If you're planning to open in 2 or 3 years' time, you need to be working on those partners now. Don't go wait until then and say, oh, we need to have a really good partner in something. Start working on them now. You know, this is the difference between an entrepreneurial mindset and one that's given over to paying the mortgage by having a corporate job. Sounds terrible, but that's sort of the alternative. The entrepreneurial mindset is saying everyone they meet is how can you either be a customer of mine, or how can you be a partner of mine, or how can you be an evangelist for me? You're always thinking in that sort of line, even if you haven't got your real business in play. You know, you haven't even got your business model sorted out, but you should be chasing that now. And so I encourage you to be looking at everyone in that light. I know it sounds quite using, but you know, obviously in the relationship that you create, they benefit from it as well. Otherwise, they're not going to be partners, are they? But you need to be aware of a chance that you might be able to fulfill their need as they fulfill yours. So key partnerships, they help reduce risk. You know, having partners in a situation does that. It helps you acquire resources you probably couldn't get, other customers or whatever, and you get great economies of scale because there's a few of you working. You're able to take on greater work with partners than you probably could just on your own. So there's different types. Buyer supplier is a typical one. So where a buyer buys from a supplier as a supplier, and then on sells it to customers. That's a typical one in most retail cafe arrangements. And just as a word of warning, I have it up there. Just get reliable suppliers. I mean, if you've got a choice between the cheapest supplier and the most reliable, go with the reliable, because you'll make more out of a reliable supplier than you'll ever make out of a discount supplier. The chances of a discount supplier staying in the game even is going to be hard. So I never used to look at really I never negotiated with my suppliers on the basis of price. It was also always on the basis of don't let me down. I've got customers that are relying on me. I don't care if your truck breaks down, you hire Avis truck and you get that stuff to me. Don't tell me that, oh, the truck broke down, I can't deliver the lettuce today. Because I have like 1,500 customers that are waiting for that lettuce. So don't just don't let me down. And I've never quibbled about the price, because in a way, you know, if you screw your suppliers and they go broke, where are you going to go and get the next lot of suppliers? Sometimes that's really hard. So strategic alliances, non-competitors work for a mutual benefit. You know, that's probably the most common one that you'll get into is, you know, you're not really, your handshakes of partners in the sense that you share knowledge, you might share work, you might even sometimes present as one unit, you know. we do this often. I end up getting called, Pete, could you come along to this meeting and be part of my team? And so I go along and I'm part of this person's team. And they say, wow, we've got this impressive array of people, when really only one person is working on the work. But it looks good to have 3 or 4 people at the table. You know, you've got this team here. And, you know, the reverse happens at a later stage. Joint venture is a little bit more serious, probably bordering on, well, it would be bordering on a partnership. That's a formal agreement of a partnership. Cooperation being competitors, you have to be careful here. You can go to jail or you can get fined. But what that means is you can't cooperate in order to screw customers. You can't say, okay, let's all get together and we're all in the same area. We've got our customers over a barrel. Let's all put our Coke bottle at $2.80. Yeah, that's actually illegal. You can't do that in Australia. But you can cooperate with competitors in the sense that, look, we don't really want to do table service, and this is what I used to say: we won't do table service, you do table service. Of course, I'm giving them all the stuff that I don't think works, or it doesn't work in my business model. Or you might say, look, we're not wanting to do a particular thing. You offer it because I still want the customer that doesn't come to me to be next door at your place, because they're still potentially my customer at some point. If me not offering it, they actually go to another precinct, I never get that customers. I never get the chance to sell that customer a nice cup of coffee, takeaway when they do want it. Okay, every lunch they mostly want to go and sit down, but every now and again they want to take away. At least they're only just next door and I keep them. You know, you actually want to work with your competitors, particularly if you're in a retail or, you know, some sort of geographic location, because you want to keep your customer in the mix. You don't want them coming out of the building and going left, because if they go left and your business is to the right, you may never get them back again. You know, we're creatures of habit and they might not come back. Cost structure. Now, we can't really do the full costing here. You know, we can't, when we get into financial planning, which we do later on in the course, I promise you that, we get into the analysis of your expenses, and we come up with some ideas about break-evens and profit and loss and that sort of stuff. Very hard to do because, we haven't even got this business up and going yet, you know. So even when a business is trading, it's very hard to predict the next year, because revenues change, market changes, cost structures change. So even people that are in business have trouble with this. So we're not going to drill too deep down into this, but there's a few things you need to know. So, yeah, cost has implications for all the other things. All those other blocks that we talked about, they have cost implications. You know, when you're talking about what target market and what value proposition, what delivery chain, every time you're opening your mouth now, you're talking about a cost. And sometimes we talked about undercapitalization, that can cause a lot of business failure. And maybe you've just got to tone your business model down so that it's not going to cost as much. So you might have to do the same offer, the same concept, but in a different vehicle. Maybe, you know, I've often said, if you've got, how much could I say? If you've got $25,000, let's go and do a coffee cart. That would be plenty of money to go and do a coffee cart. If you've got 50, maybe we can sneak in a hole-in-the-wall espresso bar. If you've got, you know, 150, maybe we could do a sit-down cafe, 25 seats, something like that, with a kitchen. If you've got $500,000, we might be able to do a nice, really nice restaurant. If you've got 1.something million, we might be able to do a pub for you. But don't go taking those numbers and trying to do the next one up, because you're going to be undercapitalized. So you can still be in the coffee game, you can still be in the hospitality game, but you just have to go back one. Go back to a hole-in-the-wall espresso bar. Don't try and open a coffee shop with a full kitchen and tables and chairs for $50,000, because you're going to get caught short. So cost structures, there's two ones. One is a cost-driven, minimal cost, leanest possible cost structure, a lot of automation, a bit like what I call a restaurant in Sydney, No Names. It was just an amazing restaurant. You had to see it as a business model. They offered two things on the menu. Let me think: chicken schnitzel and lettuce, and lasagna and lettuce, and cordial. You wouldn't think this thing would work, would you? Packed. One of the best businesses I've ever seen. The management of that, any of you have been in the food business, imagine the management of that. You order 3 things a day. Your chef training is nothing. On your first night, you're an expert at lasagna and chicken schnitzel. And it was priced in such a way, and it was so, and the furniture was all just the worst possible stuff. It was just bits of plank and wood, and people loved it. And they called it No Names. That's what they called it. That was the name of the restaurant. And they had it upstairs, so it was the cheapest possible rent. You had to actually go up these stairs like this to go up to the restaurant. And it was packed every night. Really, really successful restaurant. Just amazing. And when I went there, I said, wow, and here I'm slaving with all this, you know, huge assortment, beautiful, beautiful decor and all this sort of stuff. And here's this guy making money, hand over fist, selling two things, you know. How did I get into there? He had a cost-driven business. He had a business that was just every decision he made about the rent, about the staffing, about the product, about the seating, everything was what's the lowest possible cost. Now, I'm not saying you all have to go that way, but some of you will go into a business that is cost-driven. In other words, and we're as skill makers, I'm going to show you tonight, is a cost-driven business. We're going in just to be the cheapest possible price. Not always a smart way to go, but sometimes that's what, that is a business model. The other one is a value-driven model, which is where you, premium value creation. So you're actually doing something that's above and beyond, that people are paying a premium for something that's way beyond what they would get from a normal supply of that particular product. So, you know, a luxury hotel, lots of personalized service, value driven. So you need to make that decision pretty early in terms of, are you going to do things, are you doing things for the lowest possible cost, or are you basically selling an experience, which is the higher level? Are you really selling an experience to someone? You're not actually selling them schnitzel and lasagna. You're actually selling them some sort of experience. And we're in Fiji, there's a, if ever you get to go there, I lived there for 2 years, that's why I know a fair bit about it. There's a restaurant there called Ports of Call in Sheraton. And I don't know how much they're going to charge me to go back this time, but it's just the most unbelievable experience. We make sure someone on the table has a birthday, because the table, they come over and they sing happy birthday in beautiful harmonies, unaccompanied. You just got to see it. And you make sure someone's leaving the next day, because then they come and sing Isolé, which is a beautiful island song. And so, but just the whole atmosphere, you go through about 14 different courses, and the whole night is just, now I'm not going, they're not offering me a cost-driven product. They're offering me an experience, and I'm going to pay it, because obviously this is, I'm not going to do this again because I'll be paying for it for the rest of my life, but that's okay. So you've got to be, now it's not one or the other, it's where on the scale do you fit. If I was to say, explain that restaurant, which was at this end, and I explained No Names at that end, which is value, cost-driven against value-driven, where do you think you sit on that line? 80% towards there, or 20% back towards there? You need to mark that point on the line, particularly when we're talking about cost structures. Two things you have to pull out of your cost structures, and we'll do this in real detail in the financial planning. You need to know what your fixed costs are and your variable costs. Fixed costs are the costs that don't change. I don't care, you can double your sales, the costs don't change. So just putting it out there, what costs, if you were running a retail shop, dress shop, you've got a dress shop at the city, what cost is always the same regardless of turnover?
Rent.
Rent is a fixed cost. Any others?
Insurance.
Yeah. Insurance, outgoings. There's a whole lot. Anyway, we're going to go through it. Maybe interest on your or leasing of your equipment and that sort of stuff. So they're fixed costs, whereas variable costs are the costs that change in proportion to your activities. As your sales go up, these products go up. So obviously purchases, like if you're selling more product, you're buying more product. So your purchases are going up. Your packaging is probably going up in proportion because you're packaging more. Your delivery costs are going up in proportion to your sales. Your telephone costs are probably going up because you're bringing more customers. You know, when you're looking at your cost structure, all I want you to do here is to quickly identify what your fixed and variable costs are going to be. You don't have to quantify them. I just want to know, Pete, I'm going to be up for rent, I'm going to be up for insurance, and I'm going to be having to pay. And my variable costs are going to be purchases, and, you know, I need you to have thought them through. Now, you won't be able to do all of that tonight, but I want you to start thinking about what your fixed and variable costs are going to be. So that's your fixed costs. They don't change, whereas variable costs do. So that is the business model canvas. There it is. And it's not bad. As a start point planning tool, it gets you thinking about a cohesive strategy. What I like about it is when you come to talk to me, we're not going to just talk about this great idea you've had, because the idea really doesn't tell me what you're going to do. I need you to tell me your business model. I need you to say, what customer segment? What value do they get? What relationship are you going to build with them? What revenue streams are you going to have? What channels are you going to provide? I need to know this because I can't talk to you if you don't talk in this language. Does that make sense? Because if you're just talking ideas, I just go, I feel like I'm looking at a painting and you're asking me to admire it. You know, what do you think of this, Pete? And I'll say, it's beautiful. It won't work, but boy, it's beautiful. It won't float, but I'm in love with it too. I think it's just gorgeous. That's not the sort of feedback you want. What you want is, Pete, this is my business model that includes my idea, which is selling this product to this customer segment for this value. That's what most ideas are. It'll include the idea, but it'll have everything else around it that allows me or an experienced entrepreneur to give you some necessary feedback. And that feedback usually is stick with what it is you're wanting to do. I think it's a great idea. There's no such thing as a bad idea in that fact, but it's how you deliver it. It's how you start with it. It's how you test it. It's how you put it into play. And like I say, when you come on Thursday, probably that's a good one to record and watch, which is how do you evaluate a business model that gives me hairs on the back of my neck? I'll tell you the perfect one. I don't think I've seen one yet, except for our model, obviously. But we'll be talking about that on